Thanks for still being here and everything. It's been a long day. So this next talk, there's definitely not enough time to do this today because we've only got like half an hour, but I'll make a start on it, and I mean, if needs be, we can always do a second session. But the reason why I've done this is because in every single cohort, people have suffered from mental health issues, almost suffered from mental health issues, broken down and cried in check-ins, broken down and cried multiple times one-on-one. Like, the struggle is real, but no one wants to really share about it and talk about it, or there's a stigma still, sadly. So I thought I'd make this because there was a lot of requests for it. So I myself, some of the things that I'm going to talk to you about are kind of very actionable stuff. So none of them replace, having therapy with a psychiatrist or a medical doctor. Obviously, there are situations where you should have that, but these are kind of things that you can do before then. And I learned these things because, as you all know, I used to be in medicine, so I had to actually do these things during my psychiatric training. We had to do it on ourselves, but also myself also have gone through therapy. Coming out was not fun, so it was very, so actually, in terms of my own like mental health kind of story, journey, there have been many times in the past where I have been like, I don't know that I was like diagnosably depressed or anything. I never got a diagnosis or sought one, but definitely really tough times. I mean, coming out was super hard, like not having anywhere to live was super hard during medical school because I had to pay for everything myself. I even took a year off to just work to carry on paying for medical school. In terms of the therapy bit, which isn't really covered here, it's what I would suggest you do if all this stuff fails. Again, there's like a huge stigma about going into therapy, seeing with somebody. That's why I talk about it openly. For me personally, it was very beneficial, and I recommend it to everybody. Not because it's like a magic cure for anything. And I remember once the therapist guy, so I went for 1 year before I came out and 1 year after I came out, which is exactly what I thought I'd do, and that's what I did. And definitely like it helped a lot for me personally. I remember during one of the sessions, the guy was saying, "Well, do you expect like a magic pill? I don't have the solution for you." And I was like, "What the fuck do you mean? You're supposed to have the solution. Why am I even here then?" Yeah. I'm sure it's difficult for you to imagine, but I was quite a combative patient. But So I think like the thing that I say to people is the number one thing that I got out of like doing actual therapy was it was very useful, especially in like, because at the time I was studying medicine, right? And that's like a very high stress environment. Every single day is completely different, especially when you're a medical student, which is what I was at the time, because every 3 months you have a new rotation, right? So you're doing obstetrics for 3 months, then you're doing mental health for 3 months, then you're doing something else for 3 months, and you're constantly with different teams, so you don't have a lot of stability. You're constantly traveling between different areas. And it was really good during that time to have one thing which I knew was like completely fixed, completely regular. I used to have mine on Mondays at 6 p.m. And it was good to have that where I knew that like no matter what happened, I could just sit there and talk about what I needed to talk about. And it wasn't necessarily that I'd get the results or the answers or whatever, but I knew that I could say anything I wanted to say without any kind of like fear, right? I mean, yes, you can talk to your friends, and that's great, and that's very, very useful. But with a therapist, it's different. But the one thing that I will say about that kind of thing, if you do go that route, is it's really, really hard work. Like I remember once the therapist guy said to me, "Oh yeah, they call it work for a reason." Because I remember saying to him, like, "I don't know if this is helping. I think this might be making things worse. Like I'm always so tired after these sessions. I'm always like crying in them and exhausted. Like, is this really helping me?" But it did because, but the thing is that it's like quite confrontational. So you go through the bad stuff first, and really like are forced to be very, very honest about it before you get to the good stuff. So if you do go the route of like seeing a therapist, like a long-term therapist, then be aware of that it is work, and I would suggest that you schedule it where afterwards you can like eat some chocolate, go home and be not bothered by anyone. That's just my personal experience of it though. So everyone's personal experience is different. If anybody wants to talk about it like more one-on-one, I'm very happy to. I'm very open about it. It helped me and I got a lot out of it. But this talk won't be about that. This talk will be about, because that is like such a massive thing. So first of all, I just want to start with this video. So can we play the video? Oh, I just press it here, right? Is it playing the...
It's loading. Just wait for it, I think.
Can we make it louder?
Okay. Oops. Sorry. I just pressed it.
What have you done?
Sorry, crying.
I'm catastrophizing. Yeah, that's one of the things that we'll talk about today. Otherwise, we can all just stand really close to the... Hang on, I just realised I need to do something. Just a second.
My startups on social media.
Yeah, I'll hold that for a second. Well, no, because a lot of you guys feel that you're by yourself with this kind of stuff, but you're not. There are people talking about this. It's just might not be where you. Wait, this is your laptop, not mine. Oh, sorry. Sorry. Okay. Sorry. I was just I was going to turn off my notifications for WhatsApp because I know that they'll disturb it otherwise. Yeah. So yeah, mental health is like a big issue with founders. Founders proportionally suffer much more than the average person with depression, anxiety, suicidal ideation, but they're much less likely to talk about it or do anything about it until it's too late. I was shocked to find out the other day that the founder of Vine died recently of a drug overdose, right? So, and that's not an uncommon thing, right? I mean, obviously that's the extreme. But the point is that hopefully some of the things that we go through today might help you like to nip things in the bud. And they're all really easy. They're all things that anyone can do of any budget. I mean, often people say, "Oh, I can't do therapy," and it's like, fine. So
I had bounced around between
Is
it better?
Yeah, just go from the beginning again.
working in tech and doing charity work, and here was this opportunity to do something.
We need to maximize presentation.
You can maximize from there.
I think you can just open the...
Yeah, you can just open the usual.
That's fine.
That's fine.
That's fine. Why is it not readable? It's really...
Like a startup, no.
It says running a startup is like chewing glass and looking into the abyss is what you want to do.
Yeah, just do it. You know, these unreliable new technologies.
Lol.
Oh, don't go too high.
Yeah, 1080.
1080 is fine.
I'm on 4K.
This is why I never ever use videos in any of my presentations ever.
Yeah. Works for me.
You just download it. There you
Okay,
go.
here we go.
Sounds good.
Right, wonderful.
I had bounced around between working in tech and doing charity work, and here was this opportunity to do something big that would transform a whole industry, make some money on the side, and leave a legacy for my kids. It was a dream.
Because I just can't not do it.
Well, to make a change in my life, changing the life of the people I care of, and to bring some value into the life of others. And it was a deep belief that I truly can do that.
I want to make the world a better place for people to live in. When Ether hit bottom in 2018, a lot of our funding was still in crypto. We had to lay people off. We had to make a lot of changes to the original plan and pivot. It was probably the lowest point in our company.
We faced many struggles during first year. Unsuccessful product launch, copycats spreading around, running out of money right before you need to pay your monthly salaries to your team members. It was very stressful.
Well, that was when cash bank is, disappearing much faster than you make, some income, and you realize that happens very quickly and finishes right there. The options you potentially have are disappearing once you touch it, once you try it, and then you don't know what to do.
Well, around a year ago, I ran into debt, and that was a really, really tough situation for me to handle.
I felt frustrated. I had invested years into this and countless nights and days away from family, and it looked like it could come to an end.
I felt fear, hopelessness. It was a huge negative feeling, like you were standing on the edge of the cliff and trying not to fall.
So there was hard feeling, hard moment, but you have to keep pushing. You have to. That's what I thought to myself.
Emptiness. It was really hard for me to wake up and go to work. I felt really, really depressed, lots of illnesses. That were probably the darkest times of my life.
It was super hard to move past that point of looking at the problems around you and everyone's looking to you for answers, and to remind yourself that certain circumstances are outside your control. Push those aside and put one foot in front of the other, and remember that it's far from over.
It was a very hard time for me.
Well, obviously it was hard. You understand that nobody will help you to the scale you need to be helped. Obviously you can have some help from your investors, from new deals, maybe a miracle, magic, something will happen that will help you. But that's not the type of a help you probably need at that moment, because it should be wider than that. And again, no one but you can help yourself. And you're not getting that.
The main problem was to identify this problem. After that, I went to a psychologist. I worked a lot with her. Then I had meditation sessions, and eventually it became easier and easier for me to handle.
At the time, I didn't talk to anyone. I thought if I talked to my friends, to my family, to colleagues, the team, it would only bring them down with me. And as a founder, you're supposed to be a source of inspiration, of strength.
Yes, I did. I did talk to my family, but of course, not everything.
Well, myself only. These are those things you don't talk to anyone about that. You don't want to discuss this within the company because it may decrease the mood of your startup. It's not something, there's no church to go and confess. Would you confess to your board? Would you confess to your investors? To your clients? Not at that moment though, so I was talking to myself primarily, that's it. There was no one else.
No, not during the darkest point. I guess every entrepreneur tries to be a superhero, and superheroes never cry.
Entrepreneurship can be really hard sometimes. Break the silence. Don't go through mental health problems alone.
Yeah, the ending was amazing. So is the music.
Sponsored by Monster Energy.
Yeah. Sponsored by 2008. Okay. The point is though, is that like this is a huge problem in the startup community, and no one wants to talk about it. Founders are much more likely to suffer from mental health issues severely, but way less likely to talk about them, and that's a really toxic combination, very dangerous combination. Why does that happen? Well, this will all be familiar to all of you guys. Oh, sorry, before I ramble on, like, did you relate to any of the stuff that they were saying? Yeah, all of you, right? I was looking around, I could see all of you like nodding, smiling, like that kind of stuff. So yeah, very relatable, right? So why is it that this happens in your line of work? It's not because you're weak, it's because of the type of work and also the culture. It's extremely unpredictable, the nature of what you're doing. No day is like another day. That's one of the reasons why we love doing what we do, right? But it's also very stressful. Also, the fact that if you're the founder, it's on you, feeling that weight of the world. And like they all said, you can't talk to anyone. No, I have to be this beacon, I have to be Iron Man. Yeah, well, in the comics, Iron Man's an alcoholic. No one tells you this, but that's his like fatal flaw. And it's extreme highs and extreme lows, right? One day, you're going to get an investment for like $500,000, $1 million. The next day they pull out. That's nuts. That doesn't happen in normal jobs. Okay, and then also the culture of grind. All of us work too many hours, myself included. The whole idea of like, just get over it. Also, there's a massive selection bias. Every time you go to a talk, every time you see an inspirational story, every time someone is a speaker at Rise, you only ever hear from the success stories. You don't hear from all the failures. There are some things, like there's even one in Hong Kong, it's called fuck up sharing. So basically they talk about what stuff went wrong. But there's always like a positive spin on it or whatever. So the point is that when everybody's living their hashtag Oprah best life, it's really hard to be like, no, this is really hard and I'm actually not living my best life. I don't even know if I should be doing this. And I hate to say this, guys, but there is a gender imbalance in startup and tech world, and toxic masculinity is a real thing. To anybody that doesn't know what toxic masculinity is, have a Google of it. It's definitely real. If you even look at the video, like all the men said, I didn't speak to anyone.
Yeah.
The one woman said, yeah, I spoke to my family. That's so typical. Men do not talk about their feelings. They don't share. And then instead, they do what that guy said, oh, I just talk to myself. Cool, great, wonderful. Great way to be sane is to talk to yourself in your head. Right, so these things combine. But there are a lot of tools that you can do to nip things in the bud, to try and stop it from escalating to the point where you would need chemical help or therapy. Now, these do not replace medical help at all. If you feel that you should see a professional, then you definitely should do. Even CBT can be run in course by counsellors on the health service. In fact, in a lot of countries it is, because it's so effective. CBT is so effective and it's so quick that it's much more worth those countries that have public health services to run it, rather than doing long-term therapy sessions. All these things you can do yourself, they're free, and they really have results, right? So sleep hygiene, again, it's something that we did at medical school, right? So it's like the single biggest factor is how much you sleep and the quality of your sleep. Now, that whole, yeah, I could do 3 hours, whatever, hardcore, that's bullshit, no one can do that. I sometimes only sleep 3 hours, but I do that for 3 days in a row, and then I crash for like 20 hours. You have to, especially when you get older, you have to load up on it. Eventually you'll get sleep debt, and it will creep up on you, and it affects everything. It affects your physical health, your mental health, your productivity, everything. So with sleep hygiene, the aim is to like improve not just the amount, but really the quality, because the amount varies. People do need different amounts actually. You know, for me, it's about 6 to 7. I don't really need 8. Some people do need 8. But then every now and again, I'll have like a whole day where I sleep. So yeah, don't worry so much about the amount. Everyone's amount is different. And it can vary too. You know, sometimes you might need more in a certain time of the month, sometimes less. But if you're sleeping the day or you've got broken sleep, that means that you can improve it. Things to avoid. So the obvious one is stimulants like caffeine, but also alcohol is classed as a stimulant, even though it's technically a depressant. But that kind of stuff as well can affect your sleeping. I drink 1 million Red Bulls a day, so yes, I'm guilty of this. Your sleep environment, so this is a really big deal. Like me personally, I always make sure that my bedroom's like very well tidy, and I almost never work in my bedroom ever. Because having a computer in there, mentally it's like my happy, safe space where I don't work. I just relax, whatever. Routine as well is very important. So it sounds stupid to say this, but even stuff like brushing your teeth and having a shower before bed, like again, it's something that one of the things that I had to go through when I was doing like proper therapy. It triggers your brain to start thinking, oh, you're about to go to bed. So if you have a routine of anything, and it doesn't have to be long, it can be very simple things. Like for me, it's I get my clothes ready for the next day, brush my teeth, have a shower, and then and light a scented candle. But like because it's like nice lighting, especially if Ron's coming over. But yeah, so the other things that are natural light versus backlights. So it actually is really important how much natural light you're exposed to. And backlights, so you know, being inside, like for example, you shouldn't be inside this all day. You should try and go somewhere where you have natural light. Why? because your body has something called circadian rhythms. So circadian rhythm is a natural rhythm where there's a gland in your brain which secretes cortisol basically, which is a stress hormone. That sounds like it's a bad thing, but actually cortisol is needed to wake you up, burn fat. But if you have it non-stop, then it becomes bad. And if you fuck up the timing of it, that's bad too. That's why everybody has their own natural circadian rhythm. It can change during your life. If you want to find out what yours is, go on holiday and turn off all your clocks, and then see where you naturally wake up and naturally fall asleep. Mine is 10 till 2. So annoying, because I have to wake up earlier than that. But the point is that there are certain times where it'll be easier for you to go to sleep and harder for you to wake up. So try and stick to those times, and certain things really fuck that up. And the worst one, the absolute worst one for all of us, is backlit devices, phones, or things. Because the light shines directly into your eye and your optic nerve, and your optic nerve thinks it's daytime. And it completely fucks up your hormones. So, like, you can do a little experiment. Go to bed and read articles on a news website. And then the next day, do the same thing, but it has to be controlled for everything. Read an ebook, right, on a scanned ebook on a website for half an hour, and then go to bed. And the next day, read the actual paper book. Like, I guarantee you that reading the actual paper book, you'll feel really sleepy and you'll go to bed. I'm not joking, it's like a real thing. Right? So, because, I do this too. I fall down like Wikipedia holes where I just like keep clicking and clicking and clicking. And it's terrible because you're overstimulating yourself, but also you're messing up your hormones. Stuff like, there's certain stimulation that is fine to do before bed, essentially reading books, but things like playing computer games or being on your phone, you should try. Yeah, I know, dude, me too. But you need to try and stop that kind of stuff because it really does have an effect on you. Also, try to avoid very heavy foods. So anything very fatty, anything with a lot of protein in it, is very heavy for your body to process. And again, it will make it harder for you to fall asleep and stay asleep. And again, try not to drink like a ton of water before you get to bed either, because then you'll wake up unless you've got a massive bladder. But these are all things that are super easy to do. Right? You can literally make these changes tomorrow, and they'll have a positive effect on you. Just try them out. A/B test them for what works with you. But for me, like, it's the hot shower, brushing teeth thing, scented candle, and then I'm out. Right? That works. The only thing that's fucking that up right now is police sirens all the time, every day in Prince Edward. So I'm a bit sleep deprived, but normally it works. Okay, so necessary self-care. You can't be on 24/7. You can't, no one can. You will break if you do this. And this is to your work and to other things as well, political things. I remember when the US election was on, I was like so obsessed with it. And then when Trump won, I had like a mini breakdown and ate loads of pizza. And then somebody was like, dude, necessary self-care. It was actually on a podcast that I listened to. And it's true, yes, you have to be invested in what you're doing, but you have to allow yourself to not think about your job for certain parts of the week. You have to do it. Otherwise, actually, what will happen paradoxically is even though you're trying to be good and trying to be a superhero and push through it, you won't achieve more. You'll be going slower and slower and slower and getting stressed out, and in the end, you won't win. So, like, necessary self-care is basically small acts of self-kindness. So the things that you would tell people to do them to yourself. Like, be kind to yourself. We always forget to do this because we're like constantly whipping ourselves to work harder and harder. Now, it is not anything that brings you joy or pleasure. That's why there's an asterisk there. So this doesn't mean start using drugs to like forget where you are or start getting blind out drunk. That's called self-medication. That's like the wrong version of this, where, you know, we've all had this, I've had this, like, where honestly the only thing I want is to like stop thinking. Like, I just want to stop thinking. Luckily for me, I have Lego, and I play with Lego, build it, and like for that hour or whatever I'm building something, I don't think about anything about the Lego. Exercise also works for me, dancing also works for me, and other adult things work for me too. But so, you know, find your thing. And meditation, there's a lot to be said for actual real meditation. It really is amazing. But, you know, in terms of finding stillness for yourself, again, it doesn't have to be a specific school of actual real meditation. As I said, for me, my meditation is like doing repeated actions. So basically anything with my hands, and I put some music on, and that's me gone for like 2 or 3 hours. The other thing I like to do is go forest bathing. So I'll go for a walk in the mountain without anybody else. So like you don't have to talk to anyone. It's just you. One of my friends, Jackie, she's a yogi. She was telling me that like, oh, the reason why I get so stressed out is because I have a job. This is before this actually, where I give off a lot of prana, which is like life energy. It's like when you're talking to people all the time. So when you're dealing with other people, you're constantly giving of yourself, and you need to replenish that. And you replenish that by just not doing that, by just being by yourself. Self-care benefits, so these have been scientifically proven. There's been many studies on this. Not only is productivity and physical health better, but your actual immune system improves. And again, I'm sure you've all noticed that when you're really stressed out, you get sick. So again, it's a preventative thing. You might think, oh, but I don't have time to buy a fucking scented candle or whatever. But it's like, in the end, you will waste time getting sick. So don't get to that point. Try to take care of yourself before that happens. And then, the better self-esteem and better self-knowledge. Again, when you make these small moments, then you do feel better about yourself, and you do know yourself better because you have to reflect. I don't know if you guys remember the Dr. Claydon session. It was a session on being anti-fragile, but it was more like on a team. So remember there was that concentric circle thing where it was showing like people being super happy all the time and like winning, and it's like you can't be like that all the time. You have to have quiet moments where you reassess, and it is good to question things. It's good to say, am I doing this the right way? It's good, all of it's fine. There are no bad or good emotions, and you're not responsible for emotions either. You're only responsible for how you react to them, okay? You can't help feeling certain emotions. You can help how you process them. But if you do these acts of self-care, then you'll find that actually you are able to know yourself better. That's what CBT will do in a minute, we'll go through. And in the end, actually, you have more to give. If you're completely exhausted, you have nothing to give. Nothing to your company, nothing to your partner, nothing to your friends. So you have to allow that to like fill back up again. You can't just be giving all the time because you'll just use yourself up. By the way, if anyone's got any questions, please just ask. It's a very like open sharing thing, and I'll be completely radically honest about any of this that pertains to me. So there's a whole bunch of these. I'll send you like a massive list of them, but you can break them down to like emotional, physical, social, sensual, spiritual. So again, with emotions, there are no good or bad emotions. I just really want to get that through. Everybody should watch that film. What's that Pixar film about emotions?
Inside Out.
Yeah, Inside Out, where the whole film, for anyone that's not seen it, is the emotion of happiness is like really angry at the emotion of sadness because she feels that sadness is always like a downer, and like the whole point of the film is like, what is the point of sadness? And in the end, you find out. Sorry, spoiler. Sad. But it's such a good film. I think every kid should watch this. That there is a point to sadness. The point to sadness is that it like protects you from bad things and helps you heal after that's happened. It's explained better in the film than I just said. But the point is that emotions are like a wave, right? And that's for good and for bad. When you're on a high, don't make any drastic decisions. Don't get married in Vegas. When you're on a low, don't make any drastic decisions. You can't resist your emotions. There's no way you can stop them. You can't just say like, oh, I'm not gonna feel this way. No. You have to allow yourself to ride that wave, both high and low, with the knowledge that it will change, and it's not going to stay that good for long, and it's also not going to stay that bad for long. And the other thing about emotions that actually I was told in one of my therapy sessions by my therapist was that he said, Michael, be aware of the fact that your feelings are real. No one can take away your feelings. Like if you say, oh, I feel shit, no one can say, you shouldn't feel shit. It's like, well, how do I not feel shit? It's like if a baby falls over and cries, no one says to the baby, you should be crying, stop crying. No one can invalidate your emotions. Your feelings are real. But that doesn't necessarily mean that your feelings are a reflection of reality. So if I feel shit and I feel like, oh God, I'm the worst, I'm a failure, blah, blah, blah. Okay, that's valid. And people should have empathy for you and allow you to feel that, because there's a reason why you feel that way. but that doesn't necessarily. But be aware of the fact that it probably isn't as bad or as good as you think it is, and try and have that distance. It's difficult to do, but it can be achieved through practice. So yeah, I mean, I'll share this with you. I'm not going to read through every single one of these, but like allowing yourself to cry, allowing yourself to laugh. Obviously, therapist is one of them. Journaling is not for me, but some people find that really useful. Close friends, obviously, physical. This one's super important, actually. Like, I obviously am going through a fat phase right now, but I've noticed myself when I exercise a lot, everything is easier. Like, it's that initial thing of, oh, I don't have time. But then when you do have time, everything is easier, and you don't get sick, and you don't feel bad. It changes everything. Yoga is amazing. So I don't do yoga all the time, but every time I do it, it's like giving yourself a massage to your body. It's incredible. People say that yoga is like the physical manifestation of meditation. Meditation and mindfulness. Social. Okay, so this is, I think, quite important because especially in a place like Hong Kong, it's like super manic and you're constantly being pressured to like network and do this and do that and do that. And it's like, personally for me, my cheek muscles can't handle so much smiling, so I have to say no sometimes. But, it is important to be social. We are social animals, human beings. We cannot do everything by ourselves. It's impossible. It's actually a guarantee. You definitely will get depressed if you try and do everything yourself. We need to have social interaction. If you've got toxic relationships of any kind, work, romantic, friendship, maybe reassess them and see if they're really worth your time. Remember, the only resource that you can't buy is time. And it's your choice what you spend that time on. And you can't do everything, but you can choose what to stop doing. And if you identify something that's toxic, then yeah, sometimes you just have to stop doing that, whatever that may be. Similar to that, yes, you should try and be sociable, but if you're so tired that you're not going to enjoy a social event, don't fucking go. Go home. It's like JOMO, joy of missing out. Yes?
There's one thing that I want to share with you.
Yeah.
Really helpful for me. Like everybody knows, like I've been struggling quite a lot. So what I did is I go to my calendar, basically create a timesheet for myself to look at where exactly my time goes. Because sometimes it's pretty, subjective, like
Yeah, you don't realize.
You don't realize. So like, looking at it yesterday was like really looking at where the time goes and to think about where actually some of those things can be taken out.
Yeah,
or
potentially.
some things can be allocated to somebody else.
Yeah.
So like I start to do that, Yeah, I recommend people, if everyone like struggle like finding like just thinking like you don't have time, then take a look at it,
Yeah, really good point. Like in terms of time management specifically, there's so many different like systems of doing this. Like the one that I don't like is basically, there's urgent things and there's important things, right? If something is urgent and important, do that. If something is urgent but not important, maybe don't do that and do the important thing first. If something is not urgent and not important, don't fucking do it. Like give it to someone else, right? That's your junior. So, don't try and do everything all the time. And yeah, actually auditing for anything is very useful. And you'd be surprised sometimes how little time you spend on stuff. Sensory, okay, you might laugh, but honestly getting a massage or just like having a bath or scented candles or whatever, if you're really present in the moment, that half an hour or 20 minutes can seem like forever. Especially with our generation where everything is a click away, we're constantly. It's a problem that we have is that every time you get a like, every time you get a thumb, every time you get anything, you're shooting your endorphin into your brain like non-stop. And it's quite bad for your mental health as well. But being, separated from that and being present in the moment, you'd be amazed at how long that can seem and how calming that can be. And then spiritual, that doesn't mean religious, right? It can be making time for art, making time for, again, yoga and meditation. But yeah, it can be going to a service, but that doesn't mean it has to be a religious one. There's lots of humanist service out there. Again, a lot of people that do this, they kind of say the same things that I say for therapy. It's nice because it's every week, it's the same time. I see people, but it's different because they see people and they learn lessons. But there's a lot of things that you can do here. Find what works for you and make time for it. Okay, now CBT is the big one. So. Yeah, CBT, you can go, it's fine. She's got a call. So CBT is cognitive behavioral therapy. Has anybody heard of this before?
So
Okay, so I fucking love CBT. It's amazing. I've literally seen patients like completely transform in 3 months, and that's not possible with other types of therapy. So it's all about basically learned thinking and changing learned thinking. So similar to how, you know, babies or young children, you know, somebody takes a toy away from them and they cry straight away. They're like, it's like the worst thing in the world. But then you teach that kid, it's okay, you can take that toy back in a while, and then they learn, and then they don't freak out anymore, right? With more complex problems, it's the same thing. It's like if you're trapped in a cycle of negative thinking, you will definitely have negative consequences. Now, again, there's been so much research about this, but negative thinking is often based on false beliefs and selected facts. All of us do this. I definitely do this. Even now, I do this. And it ignores other important facts, which actually would lead to better consequences. And it's usually very, very rigid, and therefore not kind of suitable to modern life, right? Which requires flexibility. It's learned, often through parenting or socializing. But the point is that it can be unlearned, and that's what CBT does. Is it gives you like a structured way to, after the fact, after you're supposed to do CBT reflecting on things that have happened after you're not in the heat of emotion, because you can't do it in the heat of emotion. But after you've done it, then you go through it in a logical way, and you see how you could have done things differently. And then when you do that again and again and again, then it becomes learned, right? Then it becomes automatic. So these are the four most common negative thinking patterns, like all or nothing, where it has to be perfect or it's the worst. So I definitely am guilty of this. Always have been a perfectionist, but I'm getting better. Focused on the negative, that's not me, but I know a lot of people that do that. Negative self-labeling, I'm a failure. Every single person in the startup world, I don't know who you are, suffers from this, everyone. Every single person, if they're really honest, has imposter syndrome at some point, where they're like, oh, I'm not really a CEO, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing, and they're gonna find out, oh God, they're gonna find out, and then my cover's gonna be blown, right? Catastrophizing, so I definitely do this one a lot. So it's like, if the microphone's not loud enough at HSBC, everything's the world's ending. And then I shout at Mitchell, sorry Mitchell. I'm a bit too sharp in my tone. So yeah, catastrophizing, right? Does any of this ring a bell with anyone, right? These are a few more. So like needing approval too much. I love the mind reading one, that's so funny. Like, I know that they don't like me. It's just, when you look at it like when you look at it in a kind of calm perspective, it's almost comical. But this happens in the heat of the moment. So I definitely do 3. That's one of my worst ones. Should statements. He should be ready because blah, 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 should. And you should try and remove that from your vocabulary. I definitely do number 4 all the time. Disqualifying the present. No, I'm too busy. I'll do it when I'm dead, right? Dwelling on the past. So I used to do this all the time. And that was one of the biggest changes that happened to me after going to therapy. I don't do that anymore. I'm like just so over it. And it's like completely freed me a lot. Number 6 is the complete opposite of me. I'm like an insane optimist. So that's just luck. But I think this must be really hard to deal with if you've got this. But again, all of this is learned. None of it is based on fact, it's all opinions. It's learned, it's repeated, and it becomes automatic, but it can be unlearned. And CBT is very focused, it's very actionable, it's very quick, and if you do it repetitively, it's very effective. So, now we're going to do an exercise of like how to do this. So I'm going to give you all these sheets, and I want you guys to spend like 5 minutes, maybe or 10 minutes, just filling them out. I've filled mine out, and I'll share mine first, and mine's mega honest. So, you get embarrassed. There you go, Mitchell. Psycho. Oh, is somebody missing one? No.
What's happening?
Okay.
No, she was asking for it.
Well, I think it's on this one.
Huh?
I already have 5 minutes.
Oh yeah, but she's not going to be here.
Just
She's...
leave one for her.
Okay, well, I mean, okay, so you can have that one then. So I guess maybe 5 or 10 minutes, and then we'll go through them together. As I said, this is like just touching the surface of this, but I've only got an hour, so. You know. Do you know what's so funny is that every single founder that we've had who's ex-military has the same reaction. So when we had, we did that whole, my company will fail because, and she was like, what? It won't fail, but what do you mean? I'll find a solution. We were like, yeah, that's not the point. What we're saying is, do you have a worry? No, but no, because I don't let myself worry now, because I'm going to find a solution. and then afterwards, she called and she was like, sorry, I don't get it. Like, we're trying to solve the problems, not cause them. I was like, yeah, I know, but that's not the point. Like, yes, you solve the problem, but you have to acknowledge that you're worried. You're not like always on it all the time. Okay, Thomas, you can have a private session. Auntie Michelle, talk about your feelings. Okay, does anybody need more time? So 2 more minutes and then we'll start. The chocolate.
I'm good.
It's right behind you.
Spent like 100.
You're right. So bored.
Actually, really good.
Self-care. Yeah, but I need to go near stuff for you. I'll just wait until Kenneth gets back and then we'll start. Let's see what yours says, Mitchell.
I've nothing.
You are also Lies.
My unpleasant feeling is finding.
But it's not one. It's like this isn't like something that happens all the time. This is like a specific situation. So I'm going to talk about something that happened on Saturday. So what it is it's not. Just to clarify, this is not like you're not trying to assess like how you react to everything. You're trying to look at one specific thing that happened and how you reacted to it initially, and then what you made that situation to be by thinking about it. And then you look at it through, now you're not in that situation, and you can reassess it. That's the point. Well, I'll illustrate it with my example when Kenneth gets back. You will do this.
Because I always find a solution, so I don't.
The situation was that Michael was bullying me, and
He kept telling me I should do things.
he kept telling me that I should do things. My initial thought was that he was evil.
You ran all the way from Queenstown. I didn't run the whole thing.
How long did you run for? 40 minutes. What kind of shoes are you wearing? You're wearing work shoes? You ran
Flip-flops.
40 minutes in work shoes?
I didn't run the whole time. I ran the
Oh, and the rest of it was rolling. Yeah. It was like, that's like the efficient army way. Okay.
Yeah.
Right, so now we'll like talk about what we wrote down. So just to clarify for everyone, this one exercise is not supposed to like assess the totality of your personality. It's supposed to talk about one specific situation that happened. And then you analyze after the fact, once you're not in that emotional space anymore, how did you react to it initially, and then how did that evolve, and then what does that tell you about yourself? And then retrain yourself. So, okay, so my one is, the situation was that on Saturday I was very food poisoned and very sick. And then my initial thought was, fuck. And then my second thought was, fuck, not now. And then I've got way too much to do, I don't have time for this shit. Then what was and then basically the thought was, keep going, you have to get this work done, like that's the most important thing. So I tried to keep working. And I went to, so the consequences is that like I didn't let myself rest at all. And then obviously yesterday I was still sick, right? And even this morning, which is bad and potentially my fault. So it's like, challenge your initial thought. Well, the initial thought should be, the most important thing should be to look after your health, right? Not to be like, oh God, I'm gonna not do this, I'm not gonna do that, I'm gonna whatever. It should be, okay, I'm sick, that means I need to listen to my body and get better. Otherwise it can get worse. So then, negative thinking, okay? So this is like going a bit deeper into thinking, why did you react that way, right? So I know exactly why I reacted that way, because my inner baby was like, oh, this is not fair. Like, why does this always happen to me at the worst possible point? So at the time, I'd just been told that I was going to speak at 3 panels. Then I had to prepare stuff for those 3 panels, and they're all this week and next week. And I was like, going to do all of that on the weekend, plus a bunch of other admin stuff. And I thought, this can't happen now, this is not fair. And then I also thought, this is so annoying. This is happening during fundraising bootcamp. All the founders have flown in here. They're all going to think that I'm unreliable, that I'm weak, that I'm crap, blah, 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 right? So background, like where does this come from for me? So I don't know, but I've always been like this and always been a perfectionist. I think maybe it comes from being in a hardcore immigrant family, right? Where like dad always worked crazy hours, mum always worked crazy hours, and no one was allowed to complain, no one was allowed to get sick, no one was allowed to get 19 out of 20 in tests. Right? So that's like always the way it's been in my family. It's always been like, do whatever you want to do, but always be the best and never complain about anything. So alternative thinking, right? So now that I'm thinking about it now, after that's happened, what I should have done is I should have gone, okay, clearly it's inefficient for me to still keep trying to get all this stuff done when I keep puking every hour, I keep going to the toilet, I'm in so much pain, and I'm on loads of pain medication that makes me really drowsy. I should just literally go to bed and take medication. But I didn't do that. I stayed up super late on Saturday night trying to get this stuff done and got barely anything done, and then Sunday was tired as well, and then Monday I was still tired, right? So really what I should have done is just acknowledge there's some things out of my control. and I think that's one of my like worst things in life is trying to control everything all the time. You may have noticed, but like acknowledging that there are things that you can control, and yeah, you should be diligent about them. But there's things that you can't, and your health is one of them. Like yes, you can control it in terms of diet and exercise, but if you get a cold, you get a cold, and you just have to accept it and go through it. Get what's that thing when men get sick again? Man flu. Yeah, just get man flu and just like enjoy being sick. But no, you can't enjoy being sick. So 9 is like, then 8 is positive belief and affirmation. So how do I help myself get through this, right? So my one for this is, Michael, chill out. Like, just because one thing happens, it doesn't invalidate everything else you've done. Like, probably by now, they probably do think you're reliable. They probably know that you're not flaking out just one time. So allow yourself to be sick and get better, and stop, in addition to being sick, like beating yourself up over the fact that you're sick, because it's not helping anyone. And then action plan is, clearly this is going to happen again, so next time it happens, remember it, and just like skip the nasty bits and go straight to the take medicine and go to sleep part. And improvement, do you feel better and more optimistic? Yeah, because if I remind myself of this, then next time hopefully I'll get over it better. And there have been times actually where I've done that, where I've gotten sick and I've just been like, nope, I'm not doing anything. I'm cancelling everything, I'm going to sleep, I'm going into my like Borg regeneration sleep. And it works. I get healthy really quick actually if I do nothing. But I find it really hard to do nothing because I find like inefficiency super annoying. And if I feel like I'm being inefficient or slow or whatever, then it just drives me nuts. But really, by doing that, you're being inefficient. Okay. So hopefully that's like clear what you're supposed to do. So who wants to go next?
I can go.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so my last job, I had a particularly kind of stressful stretch. There was like a big project. It was gonna, kind of make or break a promotion. It's like one of those situations that occurs every every year or so when you work corporate. And literally, as I was in the middle of that, I got called into what we have jury duty. So you gotta I know you gotta sit in court, and usually it's like some bullshit. Someone's gonna like contest like a DUI or something. It's like 2 days. This was like full-blown medical malpractice.
Trying to pretend to be insane.
So they were like writing everything down, and 2 people went with like the racist card, so I couldn't play that one. Yeah. And so I got called in, and it was 2.5 weeks of like full day, whatever, 8 to 5 being in court. And so the initial thought is just like this is gonna fuck everything up. Like this is just totally gonna screw me over, and this is just like truly the worst thing that could happen to me right now. Like there's just like it's completely unfair. So that was the initial thought. And so in terms of like considering the consequences, it was unavoidable. Like once you get called into court, you can't do anything about it. Like they put you in jail if like you don't go. So you just got to deal with it. And so really just the idea of thinking that they would assume I couldn't execute at work, and like the team that was dependent on this also would assume that like I'm not able to do my stuff. It really should have just been like, it's an experience. As a little bit of it's easier to say looking back at it, but I think the way to approach it should have been like, this is going to be like an interesting experience, and at the end of the day, like whatever's going to happen is going to happen, and I can either like feel like shit about it now and it'll be the same end result in the next couple of weeks, or like really try and like appreciate the situation. And we got like a motivational video to watch about how great it is to be in jury duty, so that should have helped too.
No, it's true. It's like the thing that you said just now is like, if there's something that's unavoidable, yeah, you have a choice. Like, do you want to add to that by punching yourself in the face every day and feeling shit about it, or feeling shit about the fact that you feel shit, or just like accept it and let yourself ride that wave until it ends?
Yeah,
that's the choice that you do have in that situation.
Yeah, absolutely. And so challenging the initial thought. I think this is something that I dealt with like before, where it's just like things, of some degree of shittiness made me feel like things were very like catastrophically bad. Yeah. And at the end of the day, like I've always survived through it to some extent, right? So I think really reflecting on that and trying to realize that like it's very few things that are really the end of the world would have been much more productive. And yes, this has been catastrophic, like catastrophizing, like the all of nothing kind of situation. And Yeah, again, so really alternative should have been like understanding that people realize, that this is something that you can't get out of, and that like obviously I'm not going to be in the office, and so like there wouldn't be that much judgment of like being unavailable during jury duty. Yeah.
Cool. Great. Yeah. Who wants to go next? I'll go. Okay.
So I had one that is like maybe parallel to like imposter syndrome a while back, where basically there's an instance where I got a call to do PR that was focused on like me instead of on the company.
Oh, okay.
And I'd been in PR before, and like we've had like news articles to write about our work, and it's always nice, but never about me. And that kind of was like the trigger for then like an imposter syndrome-ish type thing, where I was like kind of hitting myself on both sides. One being like, people are going to look into you and realize that you don't know anything that you're talking about. And on the other side, like I was hitting myself for like, how dare you, like this is a team effort, like be more humble, like don't take this, stuff like that. So like on both sides of me, I was getting like pummeled or pummeling myself. And then basically that then kind of led into like other stressful normal stuff, like not the one event only, but just like let me be aware that I was even having that negative thought in the first place. And then realizing that like I wasn't eating very healthy leading up to it, I wasn't exercising really, I wasn't doing like much of anything. I was just kind of looking for reasons to like set myself off.
Yeah, I mean like the food and the sleeping thing, I guess so true, because as I said, like none of us can be responsible for the emotional response you get. Like every time somebody pushes in front of you on the MTR or whatever, like all of us have that like on the inside, like fuck you reaction, but but then you process it and you don't push the face through the window like you want to, you just like chill out, right? But the ability to filter that through a chilled response is really impeded if you're really tired. That's why people get cranky. That's why, like for me as well, if I'm super exhausted and also eating crappy junk food, it definitely changes, especially the junk food thing, it definitely changes my ability to not let my initial emotional response get the better of me, for sure. Like with actual real examples. Like I remember last year before the demo day, I was again sick, and I basically snapped at someone, and I totally shouldn't have done that. And if I would have been like not ill and totally normal, then I wouldn't have done it. I'd have just like taken a breath and said it a normal way and achieved exactly the same thing, but better obviously, because I wouldn't have then had to like apologize to that person. So yeah, if you do the maintenance, then hopefully it can prevent the bigger things. Okay, anyone else? Otherwise we'll get on.
This might be a little long.
Okay.
No, I was at the end of a work day, sitting down. I didn't have anything to do. Right? I didn't have anything I could immediately work on. I started thinking about what I can do, what I know how to do that's not work related, and I draw a complete blank. So I'm like, my initial thought is, okay, you strip all the work away, remove all the worker drone machine parts, get rid of all the responsibility. What's underneath? What if there's nothing?
Yeah, but there isn't though, because you got loads of interests and you're an interesting person.
No,
but I know the feeling because I've had the same thing.
Like to move on, it's like I was. This caused me to kind of like go back and kind of fucking think about how this works, and I realized that I don't think I was socialized by my parents and by my school to be able to do a job, to be able to find a job, do the job, and do it well. I was not socialized to be able to live a life. I was not socialized to make small talk with people, to plan things. I was taught to plan a career. Wasn't taught to plan like a daily flow. Wasn't taught to plan like a relationship with someone. It was just fuck it. Do the work. If you're not doing the work, why you're not doing the work?
Yeah, totally. And it's that whole like, really, we're working. You work to be able to live, right?
Yeah.
To be able to afford to live. You don't live to work.
Yeah.
But that's what a lot of people do.
And I was examining the internal philosophy that keeps me going, and I don't think it's necessarily wrong, but it could be maladaptive considering my circumstances, because the way that I think about it is, suffering for a human is inevitable. People are just going to be hurt no matter what it is. You live inside a meat grinder universe. And the best thing that you can do if you cannot save yourself is to save somebody else. So that's contributed to some extent to be like, I know you feel like you're a fucking robot boy with nothing inside, but even if there's nothing inside, you can make things better for everybody else around you. So that's what you go with.
Yeah, but then, so part of that is that's like really positive on the one hand, but on the other hand, it's kind of similar to the way people try and ignore problems by self-medicating in other ways. So rather than doing it in a selfish way by taking drugs or whatever, you're like helping other people, but ultimately you're not fixing the root of the problem, which would require some confrontation, and it would be unpleasant to look at like where that comes from. But it's again like it's actually totally relatable. I remember one of my best friends, Farah, last summer when I was visiting my friends. She's a trainee surgeon, and she had like such a hard year because she failed her exams twice, and she did them a third time, and she knew that if she didn't pass, basically it was the end of her career. And every single person in her family is a doctor, so it was like mega stress, right? But she's like super interesting person. She was in a rock band. She used to write a fanzine called Swamp Pussy. She's amazing. She's like super cool. But she's got loads of interests apart from medicine. But in medicine, you kind of have to just live your work.
Right.
So I remember she was telling me, like, basically me, like, there's four of us, me, Ian, her, and Jackie were like best friends since 11, and we were all like sharing about like horrible things that had happened to us. And she was saying how she passed this exam, but straight after she went to Jackie's party, and she completely didn't know what to do or how to act because she'd completely forgotten how to be like a human being.
One-to-one.
And she basically said like, and Jackie was like, yeah, I remember that because Jackie's girlfriend went up to him and was like, hi Farah, and Farah's response apparently was, sorry, like I don't know what to do, I don't know what to say. She literally just said, I don't know what to do, what to say. All I've been doing is studying for like 3 months. So she literally just said, I don't know what to do, I don't know what to say. Yeah, and it's like a thing when you're working. I remember as well, I can't remember when it was, like a few weeks ago, I got back home at 6 p.m. for some reason. And I got in and I was like, oh, what do I do now? Like, what the fuck do I do with my evening? Right? It's like, that's so fucked up that you're so used to like finishing so late that you go home, you have maybe 1 hour and then you go to bed. And if you have more, you're like, what am I doing? But it shouldn't really be like that, right? And that's what happens when work takes over. But it's difficult because sometimes you have to focus on work. And there's times to rest, there's times to play. I think what helps me is knowing that there's like a time where it won't be so busy. And also, I don't know, for me personally, I think it helps being in Hong Kong because I just do that like forest bathing thing. Like, I'll either go to the beach or I'll walk around the forest. Like even if it's a half a day, like if it's just an afternoon, it's usually Sunday afternoons where I do that. And that will feel much longer than one afternoon. And I couldn't do that in London. So I think being in a place like Hong Kong is quite helpful. Or, going to In Point or whatever it's called. So what about the next bits? Like action plan, positive belief, that kind of thing?
So the base challenge that I set to myself is basically, you don't believe that all the other people around you are without value if they are not working.
So why do you believe that about yourself?
Why do you believe that about yourself? If you're putting so much effort into allowing everybody else to have a life, why are you not letting yourself do that? Yeah, and I mean, to some extent, it's like because somebody has to do it, right? But maybe like the advice that I would have given somebody else who was my friend in a similar case would be like, if the work is now, then just hard push the work until it's done and look forward to like a break.
Yeah, I agree with that, but again, within limits, right?
Yeah, within limits.
Like in the summer, I ended up in hospital for 3 days because I lost my vision because we were going through so many applications, and I cancelled my holiday to Europe. I hadn't had a break for such a long time, and we were all of us, the whole team, was just like completely overworked. And then I started getting these visual disturbances, and then I started getting nausea and really bad headaches, and then I went to hospital and they admitted me because they thought maybe I had a subdural bleed. Right, so it's like that was eye-opening for me. because I was like, okay, but it was funny because I was even then I was running to the toilet, to the disabled toilet to do like DD session calls because they wouldn't let me do it on the ward, right? So yes and no. But the thing is that for me, definitely like work-life balance is an important thing, but I'm aware we should all be aware of our own like personalities. And again, for me, I remember I was talking to somebody about this and how like working in VC world is like all consuming, and it's very inspiring, and I love it, and I'm super inspired by all the founders, and work doesn't feel like work like 80% of the time, and so you tend to overwork. Like I remember when have you all heard of 996? Do you know what that means? So the Jack Ma, who's the head of Alibaba, he said this thing like a year ago or something, that to be successful you have to work 9 till 9, 6 days a week, and they called it 996. And it caused like this big debate in China about work-life balance. And I remember when I read that, and my reaction was, fucking hell, I wish I could only work 9 till 6 days a week. I was like, that's nothing. I was like, fuck, I wish, like, you know. But I realized how fucked up that was afterwards, because that's not normal actually for a lot of people, right? Like 996, I'm like, God, I wish I could only take Sundays off all day. So, like, often the thing, and luckily I've got a very supportive boyfriend, and like, he never complains about me working too hard, but he does remind me to take a break, and I need that a lot. Without him, I think I wouldn't have lasted long. But, you know, like, shit, what was I saying? Like it gets to the point where, because I love what I do so much, the only sign is like physical tiredness. Like even mental tiredness, it's not even mental. The mental tiredness only comes when I get physically exhausted. But that's bad though, because then you make mistakes, right? So it's about trying to balance that and not be judgmental to yourself, which I think is quite hard for a lot of people, especially high functioning people, which all of you are. Like it's a combination of high functioning, creative, and optimistic. It's like a really good combination, but it's also very self-prone to self-criticism. Have you guys ever heard of the Dunning-Kruger effect? Do you know what that means? So yeah, so the Dunning-Kruger effect is this thing they did in psychology where they prove statistically that there's a direct correlation with intelligence level, like actual intelligence level, and perceived ability, but it's inverse. So what that means is the more intelligent you are and more high functioning you are, the more self-critical you are. And the less intelligent you are, the more you overestimate your big capabilities. Yeah, and Trump is the perfect example. Like the most no, it's true. It's like the most extreme example of all time, right? But it's so true though. That's why like the kids at school that always come out of the exam going, yeah, that was great, they get a D. Yeah. And it's like the A-star students that freak out non-stop for 4 months and going, oh God, I did this wrong, I did that wrong, right? It's like the ability to, so I guess it's like, and the other thing as well is, you know, like the whole 20-80 rule, right? Is that actually that top 20% difference, like most people won't even notice that. But to you personally, if you give a shit, then you spend so much energy getting it up to that extra bit. And it's choosing, and I completely have this problem myself, but I have become much better at it recently, is choosing which projects are the ones that do require that extra 20%, and which projects it's like, you know what, 80% is good enough. Like it's fine, it's not going to move the needle, so don't kill yourself to get that. Little things like that can help with, you know, specifically time management. But again, it's something that we can discuss another time. So I think we have to finish. Sorry, I know that this is like a mega surface level, but it's a really big topic, and the purpose of this was not to give you solutions to everything, but it's just stuff that from my personal experience and also from doing medicine, I've seen that like this shit works, especially CBT. So from my personal thing, sleep hygiene works, necessary self-care works, and CBT definitely works. CBT really, really works. It's amazing. And you can like find books about it, you can find videos about it that like literally train you how to do it for free. Normally there's like 12, normally if you go to England and the NHS, you get 12 weeks, which is insanely short for like mental health treatment. But it's so effective that usually that's enough for people. Obviously, it might not deal with the underlying deep, dark problem, but it can help you with your reactions. which is what actually you need. You might not have time to delve into the deep dark problem because actually that is work, and that can sometimes really take a lot of personal time and effort to get into. Yeah, so there'll be some extra materials that I send to you guys after this. Obviously, you're all free to reach out like you do anyway and talk about it more. And I'll send a questionnaire to you guys as well, like an anonymous one about just like the assessment ones that we normally do. You know, like how was the session, and it will include an extra question, which is like, what would you like to know more about, or would you like more of these, or whatever. And then depending on what people write, then I can send out more information. Hopefully that's helpful. Yes.
I actually wanted to share
something.
Yeah. No, very briefly.
Yeah,
I don't want to get into this.
Yeah.
Because I've been trying CBT actually for a while. I actually started out, I bought books and shit, but tried to get into the habit. One of the things that I found really helpful is there's this app called Work, which is really nice because it's basically the same like this, but it basically prompts you step by step. And for a lot of the cognitive distortions, like the typical focusing on the negatives, all of these things, it actually has a nice guide for each of them to help you classify what you're doing, and it shows you how much of these classifications you're doing over time.
Yeah.
Right. And then
how it's not rooted in anything real.
What? Sorry.
And how it's not really
exactly.
rooted in
One of
anything
the
real. Yeah.
really nice features it has also is I think this is only really effective if you make it a habit. And I think it's only really effective, personally in my experience, if you focus on the small things. I think people look at things like this, not just CBT, but a lot of things like, yeah, let's tackle the big thing, let's tackle the cause. But at least in my experience, you talked about earlier about the automatic reaction, right? I think that is a problem. I think as founders, as designers, as engineers, we like to optimize a lot of things, right? There's this saying that Steve Jobs wears just the turtleneck on the back, so he doesn't have to think anymore whenever he gets up, right? Yeah, exactly. On my computer, on my phone, I have tons of things set up the way I do so that I can work more quickly. And I think we tend to do the same things when we think about certain situations, which this is supposed to undo. And so for what works well for me is noticing things that, bad things, small bad things that happen, or maybe major bad things that happen, but focusing on those incidents and making sure I think about them every time. And having those reminders and doing that actually helps a lot. Like you said, focusing on the day-to-day, if you can't focus on the big picture, has really helped.
But the point is about CBT that it is about the day-to-day. Like
exactly.
It's like a specific incident, right? And then you keep doing that, and I agree that it is something that you have to do over and over and over again until it becomes second nature.
Yeah.
Because a lot of what we do is we project onto people. Like we project our interpretation of what's actually happening. Like that person isn't evil for like bumping into you when they walked into the empty. Oh, they're just in a rush. So don't take it personally, just chill out. That kind of thing. Okay, cool, thanks guys. So now, finally, sorry it's so delayed, Jovian. Our second speaker